All right. I'll cut that part.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Blur it out.
What was that? Right now we are both in quarantine. Let's put it out there, right? Like this even just lets us be more free with what you make.
Yeah. That's true.
Let's do Materiality.
Okay.
I forget your prompt. Can you remind us?
I don't have a super specific prompt. I was here. Okay, all right. I'll kick it off with a little story, which is where this idea came from. So a couple weeks ago, a magician friend of mine and I went to see a show, a big stage production show, magic show, of two performers who we both really enjoy, who have very strong magic, who created lots of really great magic in their time. But we saw this big stage show, and we both came away from it with this kind of question of like materiality. They had this really big stage to work with, and so much of their magic was really small. And that wasn't to say that it wasn't powerful, but it had both of us thinking about what it means to have each effect have a really clear, unique, distinct element of materiality to differentiate itself that way. Okay. And then also the ways in which you want those material expressions to scale with the audience, with the stage. And that doesn't mean, just get jumbo cards for your magic trick, although that might be part of it. Part of it is literally like, how do you get a prop that makes this big, but is still integral and kind of part of the magic and an expression of yourself. And even the first example of that came to my friend's mind was that David Copperfield used to do basically just a simple confabulation routine, but he would do it with this big fake section of brick wall on stage, and people would shout out their answers, and he would spray paint them onto the wall. And there was like a light post hanging off the wall, and it had an envelope hanging from it. So you end up with this, which is where the final prediction, confabulation, reveal was. So it's the same effect as just you write it on a piece of paper and then it comes out of the envelope, but you have this whole wall kind of piece of material. It has a very clear visual. He gets to be a different character because he has different literal kind of like setting to interact with. So I don't know. I just thought that was a really interesting idea, and it made me want to go back through a bunch of my effects and go, yeah, what's the material character of this effect that makes it unique? And I have a couple things that I've come up with for myself. I don't know whether that sparks anything in you, because I think, again, you've always had a very clear focus on aesthetics and the material things that your character carries. Yeah. So I feel like you might have a different perspective on this, but which I'm interested to hear.
Oh, that's funny. I saw that routine, and I guess I didn't even think about it in that way. There for many reasons, but that
I haven't actually seen the video of it, but it sounded interesting. Yeah,
that is true. That totally changes the framing of that effect. It's a standard plot, and spray painting it on a wall, and then everything else is the same after that. But it's like spray painting it on that wall. That is something special. That is true. And that, when you reminded me, I did remember the visual of that. I did remember it. Yeah. There were a lot more visual things in that show that really stuck with me, but that's true.
Right. Well, yeah. Copperfield has never lacked for big stage visuals, and I think that's part of why he is who he is and has the place.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think that's honestly been a large, wow, then you say that, I feel like it's been like almost everything of his career.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Walking through the Great Wall of China, right? This guy's like taking like national landmarks that you can't get away from. It's like the Statue of Liberty. And it's like, you could vanish anything. And he has vanished other things. He like vanished a plane, vanished to this, but there's a reason why people remember the Statue of Liberty. It could have been anything. Yeah. So the Statue of Liberty, people remember the materiality of it. That's very true.
Yeah. Wow. And like, how many memories of David Copperfield standing on stage holding a notepad do you have?
None.
Because it's always like, But but then you think about how many memories of other people standing on stage holding a notepad do you really have? Also, basically none.
I think
like, that's not a like, oh yeah, that really punchy moment where he holds up that notepad.
Yeah, I think there's something about it.
Yeah. And that's not to knock notepads. They have their place, but it's just, again, think about that effect and whether it has another really strong material element that shines through that gives it that character. Like I was thinking, for each of my effects, I want there to be a single visual, and it doesn't not necessarily like a stage picture, but like, oh yeah, the effect where he uses the magazine, or the effect where they have that box with the thing, or the effect where with the sword or the bell or whatever. So there's a very clear material expression of, oh, that effect was different and unique because it had this thing that was different. I don't know. Something I was thinking about.
Do you have a question about it though?
Well, one question that I definitely have is how you scale it, like I was saying.
Oh, that's right.
For example, so like those performers that I saw, one of them does killer close-up stuff. But then trying to decide how you transform that into something for stage is a really tough question. Sure, you can have, like the classic is like a camera person, just film it and make it the visual big on stage, which is good. But even then, it doesn't give it the same materiality. Because, like, it's a deck of cards. Sure, I can see it much bigger on the screen, but I know that physical object is still only this big. In my head, I don't get a big physical, like, I don't know, presence from it.
You're right.
So, like, how do you scale that up in different ways?
You're right.
And like, how small can an object be and still have that big stage presence? Like the whole thing of like Chekhov's gun. Like, you don't have to have, it doesn't have to be a big object. So if somebody had like what's his name, Jonathan Goodwin or somebody, like does an escape thing where he's got like a crossbow that he shoots on stage, like that's not a huge object. But as soon as you put something like that on stage, that's a that is a material object with fucking stage presence.
Well, it's an object that has an intent, like naturally.
Yeah.
You can't divorce that, the idea of shooting anything out of a gun when you look at a gun. You can't look at it and be like, oh, that's gonna like. But when you look at something else, like a big, like a box or something like that, it doesn't get the same message across because you're like, okay, well, something's in there, but it's like, what the, I don't know, it's not as loaded.
Right. It literally, I think, because most people have heard the phrase Chekhov's gun. Like, once there's a gun introduced in a play, someone's going to get shot, or the gun will be fired. But thinking about, like, what other objects have that similar kind of energy without being literally like that? What else can you bring out on stage and immediately have people look at and go, oh, okay, something's happening here. There's drama here. There's intent here. There is kind of plot progression, even if you want to think about it in that way.
I think in that way, if that would happen if magicians picked and chose everything that went onto that stage, and they picked it with purpose. So a set designer went over with them. Whatever the hell happened, their clothing, their this, their that, and then people would start to get those connections.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I think about Derren Brown's show in New York, and the original stage picture of that when you walk in the theater is a chair and under a beam of light or something like that. And he comes out, sits on the chair, does his opening monologue, and that's what gives that piece purpose. I think Derren actually does a lot of stuff that nothing is wasted in that sense.
Yes.
You, as the audience, if he brings some little pad out, it can just be a pad because you know that Darren's going to do something crazy with that pad. Something is going to be on there. But when you watch a show, which frequently happens, they'll just have things that are just kind of there, or like they'll kind of use it and it's not meaningful. And so then that trains an audience to be like, well, they could just bring out, like anything, and I'm not going to really care because they could be dressed a certain way and I'm not going to really draw too much into that. Like Derren does a costume change in the middle of his show.
Right. Never focuses on it, and it's never mentioned, but it changes. It signifies a different character, a different tone, a different feel. Yeah, if magic were done correctly, knowing whether or not a magician came out on stage with a pocket square or not, that should tell you something about the show.
Yeah.
But right now it does not. Two
Yeah.
magicians could walk out wearing totally different, like, because part of tied up with materiality is intentionality, and the intentionality that the materials carry and that the materials are imbued with, are given. And I think that even more than materiality, magic lacks intentionality.
Oh yeah. People will, again, but it relates to how people got involved in magic. When you get involved in magic, you literally buy a trick, and they say what to say, how to do it, everything. You are provided something, and so you take this concept of like borrowing things all the time. And so when it comes to your own set, like let's say you make an hour-long show, it would probably be very hard for a traditional magician to create something that is where everything makes sense. I would find myself and trying to piece together things that don't match, and I'm like, well, I can't do that because then I have to do that after. And it's like, okay, get rid of that thinking. Like, build this from the ground up. Don't try to hodgepodge things, because that's how you end up with loose ends that never make sense. It's when you hodgepodge stuff.
Right. Yeah. Right, because you're not starting with the intent, you're starting with the content, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Well, great. Solve that one. Everyone, you know what? You're welcome. Just
think about materiality and intentionality.
Build everything from the ground up, and you are going to be good. All right.
And always pay attention to whether or not you're wearing a pocket square.